Video game movies are very much known for their incredible writing and quality.
Monkey!
There are not that many Nintendo movies because, well, you know. Besides Pokemon, Jesus Christ, one of the few other Nintendo movies is...
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
The Wizard was released on December 15th, 1989. A story about 3 kids traveling to California so they can compete in the Ultimate Video Game Championship. The movie is certainly something, but no one cares about the actual movie itself. There's only one reason why you'd watch this movie today.
Super Mario Brothers 3! You have 10 minutes, and the player with the most points wins!
Super Mario Bros. 2 sold over 7 million copies worldwide, with it becoming the 4th best-selling on the NES. Oh, and that our other one made about like 2 million, but who cares? This stupid Italian brings in the big bucks, so obviously they gotta make another one. The development of Super Mario Bros. 3 actually started in 1986, shortly after the release of Lost Levels, the original Super Mario Bros. 2 on the Famicom Disk System. The creator of Super Mario Bros., Shigeru Miyamoto, served as a director overseeing the game. The team behind the game wanted it to be played at an isometric angle. God, could you imagine what that'd have looked like? But they just decided to keep it at a normal 2D perspective. You can definitely see that the development team knew what they were able to do with the limited capabilities of the NES when looking at the sprite work. But we'll save the presentation for a later section of the video. If you haven't seen my last 2 Mario videos, it's good for me to let you know that I don't really have a lot of experience with classic or old Mario. Like when it comes to the NES all the way to the GameCube, I have little to no experience, aside from Sunshine, Mario World, and some of the GBA games. Again, as I said in my Mario 2 video, I didn't like Super Mario Bros. 3. In fact, I hated it. Like, this is one of the best NES games, one of the best Mario games, this game, but now I am fully gonna finish this game in this review. Note that at this part of the script I haven't played the game, so yeah. After finishing the game and recording all the footage, let's just jump right into it. When it comes to the overall presentation of the game, The sprite work of the game has majorly improved since the last 2 games. All the enemies, blocks, and power-ups look really nice. Mostly. I'm not really a huge fan of the color palette, but I get why it looks like this. Most NES games have pretty simple or pretty shit color palettes. And with Mario 3 having some pretty detailed sprites for the NES, I understand why the color palette's so simple. With all that being said, I still don't like its color palette. It just looks too dark and muddy. But let's actually talk about the sprites themselves. Obviously, Mario 3 sprites are much more detailed and overall bigger than Mario 1, especially with Mario himself. You can actually tell he has a mustache. Overall, I think the sprites look great. It just has a really shitty color palette. The music is... wait, the music. Holy shit, this game actually has music! There's actually more than 2 tracks this time. We've got as much as a unique track for all 8 world maps, which makes me very happy. The music barely ever gets dull and repetitive, unlike the first 2 game soundtracks. Most of Mario 3's soundtrack is very catchy and pretty overall great to listen to. If you remember my original video on Mario 1, I wasn't very kind to the controls. They overall felt stiff and finicky. I just didn't like the physics and the feeling of how the game played. But now, when it comes to how 3 plays, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's better. Leagues better than the first game. Being able to turn in the air alone makes it feel so much better. Mario is so much faster than he was in both of the other games. There's even a meter to showcase how fast you're going, which also connects to a few other power-ups. There's still one thing I want to talk about when it comes to how Mario controls. As I'm writing and recording this, I'm not sure if I would call this a positive or a negative. In Mario's 1 and 2, Mario felt a lot more floaty, to me at least. In the first game, Mario was slippery and clunky, which is why I didn't like how he played in that game. But in Mario 2, his traction was massively improved, which is why it was a lot more fun to control in that game. Now in 3, he feels much heavier. He has an improved jump height, but he falls like a goddamn brick. It's not necessarily a bad change, but I just personally like how Mario 2 controls more. But in a 2D Mario game, it's not just about the physics. It also needs to have good power-ups. The Mushroom, Fire Flower, Star, and 1-Up reappear, with quite a few more joining as well. The Super Leaf, and the Tanuki suit. Probably one of the most iconic and well-known power-ups in the series. When the meter at the bottom is full, you'll be able to fly for a limited amount of time. Even without a full meter, you can still glide in the air if you just fucking demolish the jump button. My only big problem with it is the actual tail. And besides making Mario a furry, it's supposed to give you another way of attacking. The thing is, it has such a small hitbox and such a long startup, you shouldn't really use it unless you literally have no other options. Oh, and the P-Wing gives you infinite flight. If you keep mashing, of course. The hammer suit is really cool.
If I had one!
I don't know if it's because of the route I took throughout the game, but I could not find one in any level. I was able to get one from a Toad House, and it was in my inventory, but for some reason, I wasn't able to select it. Oh, one quick detour. On the map there are some Toad Houses that can give you items for your inventory and give you an edge in the levels. And finally, the frog suit. The fucking frog suit. It allows you to swim underwater. The power-up does its job well, but it shows a huge problem when it comes to how Mario controls underwater. Overall, I think the controls and physics of the game work quite well. In fact, I really like how Mario feels. But the swimming sucks. I talked about this in my Sonic 1 video, about how most people, including me, don't like water levels because they slow down the game and kill the pace. But here's the thing, it's not that the levels themselves suck, it's how the character controls and feels. You know what? I might actually make a video about water levels, because it's interesting how many games actually mess this idea up. Overall, the gameplay loop and control you have over Mario is really satisfying. Although I do still prefer how Mario 2 controls. So far I've been pretty positive on how I see Mario 3, but I do think there is just a teensy tiny bit of a problem with the game. Just a tiny problem.
Reality, never be charity. The enemy you're fighting covers all society. Damn right, mommy's not here, gonna fight all night. Right here, shadow 10 o'clock direction. Seize the moment, destroy the nation. You rhyme slow motion, give me motivation. Breathe out now, and then on the rival. Round up around, spit out all over. Rhyme like a rolling stone, come in the crowd. Watch out the moon, they this too loud. This won't this sound, and bombs whole ground. So round up, don't ease your pace, cause enemies brutal. Moment of truth, there ain't no truth. You're the only one world, one love. But the battle goes on, shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah, down, baby, baby, down. Oh yeah, down, baby, baby, down. Oh yeah, down, baby, baby, down. Oh yeah, down.
Yeah, it's just a tiny bit hard. Mario 1 and 2 weren't that hard. 1 had its bullshit moments like some of the later castles, but overall it's still relatively easy to get into for new players. Now, when it comes to Mario 3, the main reason I hated Mario 3 for such a long time was because of, well, how kind of bullshit it is. Also, reminder, for the longest time I played this on the 3DS. Also, I'm just pretty bad at video games in general. Some of the best levels in the game tend to be pretty open and giving you plenty of room to gain speed. When it comes to the auto-scrollers, they're okay, I guess. I find some of the early ones pretty fun though. A lot of the early ones do a very good job of being fast enough to keep you on your toes, but they also give you enough time to show you what's coming in front of you. One of the biggest negatives, and positives with the game, is its level design as a whole. It's sort of like a complex puzzle. Although most of the levels are your standard go from left to right affair, sometimes there are more unique levels that act like mazes. Levels like 3 Castle, 6-5, 7-5, 7 Castle, and 8 Castle. Fuck that one specifically. My main problem is that they get rather tedious and boring because, well, as a first-time player, technically, you're just going to be guessing pathways until you make your way to the end. Luckily, they're the only levels that do this, so that's good, I guess. But now when it comes to the actual, really bad levels, the tank and airship levels. I hate these levels. Not because they're extremely hard, although they can be extremely bullshit at points. For one, earlier in the video, I talked about how I didn't really like the color palette of this game. These stages are they just look awful. They're also auto-scrollers. Yay. These levels are too slow to be running straight through, and they're too fast for you to think about your next move with all the cannons shooting at you. And the worst part, all of these levels are just the same, and the bosses are ass. Boom Boom is the jobber of the game, a mini-boss used for all of the bosses. To show you how shit all the bosses are, here's Boom Boom from World 1, and here's Boom Boom from World 8. A real challenge, am I right? The Koopalings. Larry, Morton, Wendy, Iggy, Roy, Lemmy, and Ludwig von Beta. Koopa! They all make their first appearance in the series with this game. Oh, and look at that, they all suck too! You can jump on their shells and bounce off them. They're spiky shells. Like, what the fuck? That literally takes all the difficulty away from the bosses. At least Bowser's fight is somewhat interesting. He jumps in the air and tries to crush you, with you needing to lead him into the middle of the brick wall block so he can fucking kill himself. Unironically, Bowser from the first game was a better boss than every single one in 3. This game has such a weird difficulty curve. The beginning is pretty standard for most Mario games, but then it just decides to pull out some random bullshit out of nowhere, but then goes back into easy mode a few stages after, and the bosses are just mind-numbingly easy. I'm not saying the entire game is bullshit. I feel a lot of the deaths in my playthrough were mostly my fault. It's just that this game is just not very good for newcomers. Why do people love Super Mario Bros. 3? Why does Nintendo keep referencing and taking things from it? Why is it constantly seen as one of the best NES games of all time, and just overall one of the best Mario games of all time? Well, for one, it's the 3rd best-selling NES game with over 17 million copies worldwide. Nostalgia. When I see a lot of people talk about how Mario 3 is the best game in the series, they're generally much older and mainly grew up with those older games. But mainly, I think the biggest and main reason for why it's so fondly remembered is, well, it's just a pretty well-made game. Super Mario Bros. 3 is one of, if not the most polished game on the NES. A lot of the levels in the game can get very creative at points, and give us a lot of fun gimmicks, so it can switch up the formula every few levels. Even though I heavily criticize the unfairness and difficulty of the game, there's still a great mix of satisfaction when finally beating a difficult level. I genuinely want to go back to the game so I can get better at it. I like Mario 3. I don't think it's the best game in the series, but hey, it's really damn good. A solid 7 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and see you next time.